welcome to our first video. Today's topic is on creating a unique character shape. In today's lesson, we'll cover 3 approaches to character generation. We've got a lot to cover in this video, so let's jump in. So part of what makes the more famous comic book characters so memorable is their shape. Think of some of the popular characters like Batman or Wolverine, or even the dog Snoopy from Peanuts. Each of them have distinct shapes. Batman has pointed ears and a cape. Wolverine has sideburns and claws. Snoopy has his nose, his ears, and his dog tag. No matter which artist is drawing them, at the time, these things carry through. If you look at their silhouette, you will often be able to recognize them through these things. While it isn't the most important element, or even a big part of why these characters are so famous, they are important. We live in a world filled with images, so our brain filters a lot. So the first step we're going to take in this process is to choose a genre. In which universe does your character live? Comics are very diverse. That means there's all kinds of different topics that are explored through the medium of comics. So whether you're into monsters or unicorns or robots, science, history, superheroes, or everyday real-life characters like we see in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, there's a place for your character. My only 2 rules are this. 1, choose something that you like to draw over and over and over. 2, choose something that you know about or that you can easily find information about. Part of character development involves extensive drawing and experimenting with your character. Don't waste your time on something that you don't like. So one of the ways you may have learned how to draw in school is by breaking things down into shapes. So if I'm drawing a person, I might use a oval for the head, a rectangular shape for the body, and for the what we call the torso, and the hips, and circles for different joints. So where's my elbow, where's my hand, where's my feet, where's my ankle, where's my knees? You can do something similar when you're creating a character, but it's a little more free form. I'm more likely to use this method when I'm not sure what to draw, I feel stuck, or maybe I'm trying to draw something that's a little more fantastical or an imaginary character, such as a dragon. This method's also great for things that you might already know very well and have an idea what you want to in your head. Most of the time, I will use this as a first approach, and I'll refine the design using the other methods I'm going to cover later. I've chosen to use an owl for my character. I love owls. I don't know what it is. I just got a thing. You can use either many different shapes or repeat the same shape in different ways to create your character. There are no wrong ways to do this exercise. And I encourage you to explore different ways to put together different shapes to come up with the same character. By experimenting that way, you're going to find what works the best and what you love. I encourage you to look at this exercise more from the lens of, this way was easier to draw, or I just don't like this combination of shapes, or this just isn't quite working, so I'm going to try something else. Rather than, I can't draw this right, or I'm not good at this. Experiment and try this as many times as you need until you feel like you have a good version of your character and you're ready to move on to the next exercise. For reference, check out the guide labeled Shape Combination Exercise for more information. So even the most experienced artists use reference for their artwork. By reference, I mean an example of what you are trying to draw, paint, or sculpt using a real-life example or a photographic example. Whether using a real-life example or a photo, you want to recreate the surroundings as much as possible. So you want to pay attention to how the subject is lit. So is it in daylight? Is it indoors? Because those can be very different things. So if your character is going to be based off of a real life object, say for instance, let's use a mug. for example, I want you to practice putting it in different lighting sources. So maybe draw it in the daylight outside, so it's very different, and then draw it under a lamp. And then I want you to practice drawing it, like move it around and draw it from different angles. So you really get a feel for the object, and then you can start to add things like eyes, a face, hands if they have it, feet, whatever you want to add to your character to make your character. If you've decided to use your pet as an example for your character, I'm going to suggest that you, with permission, use a camera, capture them from different angles and different lights. Take as many pictures as you possibly can of them. They are great reference. However, unlike people, they cannot sit still. Even the best dog who can sit there forever is not going to sit still while you draw them. So if you've based your character off of a real person, may I suggest that you also take pictures of that person. Not only so they don't have to sit still every time you want to work on your comic, but also they move anyways. So you're going to want to take lots and lots and lots of pictures for reference. So for my example, I've chosen a wild animal. Now, I don't have one of those around my house, and I'm not going to go to the zoo and sit forever and take pictures of owls. So I'm going to have to do some digging online. This is where you're going to need some help from your parents. Instead, I'm going to use photographic examples that I find online. I like to use a site called Pinterest. However, Google searches will work just fine. Just be sure that you've talked to your parents and that your filters are set up for your internet so that you don't get content you don't want. I'm also going to include some links in our classroom to a few free photo sites that are usually kid-friendly. I want you to look through the search engine or photo resources for 5 photos of your chosen subject for your character. If you can get them from different points of view and in different lighting conditions, that would be fantastic. It'll help you later in the course for some of the other exercises that we're going to do. I personally like to print them out at full size, but if you want to conserve ink and paper, you can just compile them all together and print them out on the same piece of paper. Now you might have a closer idea of what your character should look like. Maybe you like characters that look more realistic, or your character is based off of a real animal or object, or maybe you like characters that are a little more cartoonish. Here's an opportunity for you to make another choice. You can choose to draw a character that is more realistic, so think like superhero, or more exaggerated, so like Phineas and Ferb, that nose. If you choose to draw more realistic, I want you to use the photographs to help you with proportions and perspective. This is especially important when you're working with human characters in a traditional comic style. Proportions are relatively common measurements of things like head size and height. For example, some proportion guidelines many artists use are height in relation to head size, torso size in relation to your femur size, which is the bone that goes from your hip to your knee, and hand size in relation to your face. Perspective refers to the way we draw what we see from the reader's point of view. Someone's leg pointed toward me may look very different from someone's leg pointed away from me. The only way to learn how to draw these things is to look at reference examples. You actually have to look at what you're drawing. If you've chosen a more exaggerated style to draw your character, you still need to practice with reference. So let's say you want to draw your character like a Funko Pop toy. I need reference for posing the rest of the body, and then figuring out how the head might block what you see. When I'm going through the inking process or the color process, I might want to add texture. I need reference to know how to portray that texture so that it looks real. Whether you choose to work more realistic or more exaggerated, I want you to draw your character several times. Experimenting is the only way to get a feel for your character. As I said at the beginning, part of being a comic artist is drawing the same character repeatedly. So once you've settled on a design that you like, we're going to do one more exercise to refine the outline of our character. I want you to draw your character from the front point of view on a piece of ink-safe paper. Use your pencil to draw the character, focusing mostly on the outline. Once you're done, I want you to take your black marker and carefully trace the outline of your character, as I'm doing here. Then I want you to fill in the character. Take a moment and study it. Can you tell it is your character even just by certain parts of the outline? Maybe take a copy of your final character in pencil from your shape combination or reference method exercises and ask your parents, siblings, or friends if they can tell the two objects are similar. With your parents' help, take a photo or scan a copy of the silhouette and save it to your device. And then I want you to upload it to our Google Classroom so that we can talk about it and look at it and go from there. You can use the Digitizing Your Work guide found with the other resources to help you with taking photographs and scanning your artwork.